Women, what is something that men will never understand? Male architects apparently don't understand the importance of having trash bins inside the stall. Put up as many signs telling me not to flush my tampon down the drain. If there's no bin, I'm sure as hell not taking it out with me. Edit. Sorry, not architects. I wasn't really sure who exactly is in charge of that decision. Owners, interior designers, etc.
It's funny how some places just don't think things through, right? Like you have these nice-looking bathrooms, but then no bins. I mean, what do they expect? People are going to make do with what's available. My friend once walked out of a restroom in disbelief, just shaking his head at the lack of basic planning. Kind of ridiculous when you think about it. You'd think they'd consider the essentials.
While I totally agree with the spot-on critique of ingrained sexism going on in this thread, on the lighter side, shaving. We have to shave so much because a lot of us are just as furry as you are, all over our legs. In other places, we got quite a lot of surface area to cover, and we have to deal with ingrowns and rashes and itchy stubble in weird places much like you do. Though it sucks, we still feel the need to be silky smooth or else face eternal judgment, but we love it when you love our sleek skin. Oh, almost forgot about waxing. I've got a friend who regularly waxes her full arms, face, and neck so she can feel feminine. And those are just the parts that are visible. Think that sounds easier? Maybe if you're into pain.
I get it. I've had friends who go through the same routine. They talk about the struggle with shaving and waxing, balancing the effort with how they want to feel about themselves. It's a lot of work just to meet some standard. My buddy tried waxing once, said it hurt way too much, and never did it again. But yeah, I guess everyone has their own way to deal with it.
I work in a very male-dominant field, so my answer has to be what it's like to have my gender brought to my attention constantly by customers and clients while I'm working. Sometimes it's snarky, sometimes they mean well, but I always feel a little degraded when it happens because no one ever comments on what the guys are doing.
It's tough when people focus on your gender instead of your work. I get that feeling. I remember a time when I helped out a friend in a similar field. Some clients would only talk about her being a woman, not her skills. It's frustrating when you know you're capable, but they reduce you to just that one aspect. It's like they're missing the point, you know?
The pressure to look good always. Men think this is exaggerated, but they also perpetuate it, which is confusing. If a guy shows up to class in sweatpants, just rolled out of bed, people don't think twice about it. A girl shows up in sweatpants, no makeup on, people think she's sick or tired or lazy. The best version of a man takes half the time that the best version of a woman takes, and that best version is expected of us at all times. If a man has a belly, he's jolly or huggable. If a lady has a belly, she's chubby and would look great if she lost a few. Sure, some men like the no makeup look, but I guarantee that most of them don't know what no makeup actually looks like. Men say they want an all-natural, steak-eating, low-key women, but they don't know what that actually looks like.
It's interesting how different the standards are for men and women. I've noticed this with friends. One time, my buddy showed up in sweats and no one cared. But another friend of mine got commented on for showing up without makeup. It's strange how those expectations play out, and how some guys don't even realize what they're asking for. It feels like there's this constant pressure on women that most guys just overlook.
That at night, doesn't matter where I am, if I'm walking alone and I see a guy or group of guys walking toward me / behind me, I won't be at ease until I pass them and they are far away from me. Doesn't matter what race. Edit. I now see that a lot of guys feel this way too. I guess I always thought guys were not as wary unless they were in a sketchy area. As a 5 feet 3 inches, about 105 pounds female, I always feel that I would just be an easier target because if I try to fight back, it probably wouldn't deter the aggressor.
It's pretty common to feel that way, especially when you're out alone at night. I remember a time when I was walking home and noticed a group of guys behind me. My heart started racing until I passed them. It's strange how awareness kicks in based on size and situation. I get that tension. It's not just women who feel uneasy. Even some guys do when they sense something off.
To be the crazy gender. No, I'm not overanalyzing everything men say. No, my mind isn't constantly running. I'm often thinking about nothing at all. I often just want to be alone and chill by myself. Yes, I know what I want to eat 99% of the time. These were common response from the other thread. It's unbelievable. Almost every response was the typical crazy emotional woman stereotype. It's offensive. None of these things listed are exclusively women. Everybody has their moments of high emotion.
It's interesting how stereotypes can cloud people's judgment. A friend of mine used to get labeled as the emotional type, but they were really just in touch with their feelings. It's true that everyone has emotions. It's part of being human. It's not about gender. It's about being real and honest with yourself. Sometimes people just need to chill and be themselves without the labels.
The little things are so important. For example, my BF hates doing laundry, and I know nothing about vehicle repair, so we have traded these responsibilities off. 2/3 times per week I sort, pre-soak, wash, dry, hang, and fold all of the laundry I can find. But if I could just get him to help me carry the dry clothes upstairs, or even if he just put all that crap I just spent literal hours preparing for him up, maybe I would have the energy to cook you dinner and give you a blowy afterwards. Or at least I would feel like someone valued the time it takes me to keep daily life running smoothly. BC, that shit is not fun. Just saying.
It's interesting how relationships work. The little chores can really add up. Trading responsibilities like laundry and car repairs makes sense, but it seems like you're doing a lot. It would be nice if he helped out with the finishing touches, like carrying clean clothes upstairs. A bit of teamwork could make everything feel more balanced. It's about feeling appreciated for the effort, right? Everyday tasks shouldn't feel so one-sided.
That we come across as thinking too much because we have to be intellectually sophisticated and intuitive from a very young age. From kindergarten, we learn that it's okay for us to know an answer, but we shouldn't be overeager about it, and we should let other kids have a turn. We can enjoy eating, but not too much, because then we'll be a pig. Nothing is black and white for women. You can be pretty, but not too pretty, smart, but not a know-it-all, assertive, but not bossy, confident, but not cocky. If we seem anxious all the time, this is why.
It's interesting how early social cues shape our behavior. I remember in school, there was always this pressure to hold back, to not outshine others. You wanted to fit in, but it felt like a constant balancing act. I think a lot of us ended up second-guessing ourselves. There's definitely a weight in trying to find that middle ground without coming across as too much. It makes sense why anxiety creeps in for many.
We aren't these complicated machines who share one collective mind, whose only purpose is to confuse you. You ask me if I want to go eat. I say sure. You ask me where I want to go. I say wherever. You flip the fuck out and consider me a stupid, indecisive woman who can't make up my mind. Dude, it was your idea. I do not care. If I did, I'd tell you. You are allowed to make decisions like that. It's okay.
I get it. Sometimes it feels like people want you to take the lead, but they also expect you to be ultra-decisive. It's weird. Like if you ask where to eat and I say, wherever, just pick a place. It was your idea, after all. It's cool to let the other person have the reins sometimes. Just roll with it, right?
Sizing on clothes blow. Bras and panties are the worst. Buying clothes is hard enough being a tiny woman, and it is just straight up hell trying to buy dress pants and things for work when nowhere sizes their clothes even remotely close to one another. Bonus problem about sizing. They assume all petite females have zero boobs, so either I could buy a size up and swim in it or buy what fits correctly everywhere, but my bust and pop every damn button at the top, or look like the office tramp.
I get that. Clothing sizes can be a nightmare. It seems like they never match up, especially for petite women. You either end up with stuff that's way too big or way too tight in all the wrong places. It can be frustrating having to choose between comfort and appearance. I remember my friend went through the same thing trying to buy work clothes. Just another hassle in life, really.
Feeling exactly when your period starts. On the other hand, feeling like you've started your period, but when you go to the bathroom, it's nothing. Waking up in a pool of blood and having to do laundry at 6 a.m. Basically, I bleed out of an orifice for a week straight and don't die. It sucks, and I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't even get mini cramps.
Yeah, I get it. That feeling of waiting and then nothing, it's weird. Waking up to a mess is always a rough start, right? Though it sounds rough, it's kind of a normal thing for a lot of people. It's just part of life. But hey, if you're managing it pretty well without the bad cramps, that's a silver lining, I guess.
It is infuriating that it is leaking into men's clothing. My jeans are supposed to be sized in inches. There is even the inch symbol on the size, but god damn it, it's not consistent at all from brand to brand. A 36-inch waist should be exactly 36 inches when I measure it and should be the same in every company.
I get what you're saying. It's frustrating how sizing can vary so much. You'd think with all the technology, they could keep it consistent. It's annoying when you buy a certain size, only to find it doesn't fit right. Makes shopping for clothes a bit of a gamble. Sometimes, I just stick to one brand to avoid the hassle.
Sizes 6 to 12, XSXL here. I'm chronically out of work shirts, and my husband always suggests buying them bulk online. Every time, I tell him that I can't buy shirts without trying them on because the sizes are meaningless. He just looks at me like I'm speaking another language. I've even paraded out the shirts in my closet and showed him. XS, S, M, and XL. The only size I'm not is large, but all the other sizes are somehow the same dimensions.
I get that struggle. Sizes can be all over the place, and it feels like trying to decode a secret language. I had a friend once who spent hours trying on clothes because every brand had a different idea of what a large or small is. It's just frustrating when you think you found the right fit, but it ends up being nothing like you expected. Trying to explain that to someone who doesn't get it can be pretty wild.
I was in physical therapy, and the guy kept giving me these exercises that I couldn't do properly. Finally, he just cut it short and said if I wasn't going to try, I should go home. I had to remind him about boobs. He rolled up a towel and put it under his shirt. Not the same, but he finally got the idea that I just wasn't going to be able to do it.
That sounds like a tough situation. It's awkward when expectations don't match reality. The therapist probably didn't realize the struggle you were facing. At least he found a way to relate a bit. Sometimes, making things a little more relatable can help bridge that gap. It's all part of the process, though. Therapy can be frustrating, but you gotta keep pushing through.
Reminds me of a girl in high school on a scavenger hunt type of field trip for school. There were 4 of us in a car looking for some object on the list, and she got her period. She was wearing white pants too. We all felt so bad for her, we just said screw the hunt, so we took her home so she could get changed.
That does sound like a rough situation. It's good you all prioritized helping her over the scavenger hunt. Friends should have each other's backs like that, especially in awkward moments. Sometimes it's those small gestures that really count.
Years ago, one of the ladies I worked with brought her newborn in for a baby shower type thing in the break room. I contributed money for a gift and stopped by for 10 minutes because I didn't want people to gossip about me being a cold, uncaring person, which would probably affect how helpful they'd be when we worked together. It was really awkward to be expected to all along with "she's so cute, how is it being a new mom," etc. The whole time I was there, edit, remove the last 2 sentences because they were worded poorly and sounded horribly mean, which was not my intent.
I remember when a coworker brought her baby in. I felt pressured to show up and be polite, so I gave some money for a gift and dropped by. The whole vibe was pretty awkward. Everyone else was really into it, and I just stood there trying to fit in. Honestly, I wasn't really into babies, but I didn't want to be seen as unsupportive. Just part of the job, I guess.
I think some people don't realize that periods are different for everyone. Yeah, some girls might just get a little moody for a week, but then there are girls that get really sick when it's that time of month. I have had terrible periods in my life. For a long time, they were absolutely crippling. I'm talking doubled over, vomiting from the pain, and I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so it was bad. Foods that normally didn't bother me made me pukey if I was on my period. Same went for smells. My digestive system totally went to shit. Any food I could keep down turned into awful bathroom experiences. Fortunately, I've got my periods under control now, but my God, the people who would just tell me to get a heating pad and it will go away in 10 minutes. They have no idea what they're talking about.
I get that. I've seen friends go through really intense periods, way beyond just mood swings. One of my friends would be in bed for days, not just because of cramps, but the whole body experience. The suggestions people give often seem so basic. Just a heating pad doesn't cut it for everyone. It's tough when those who don't experience it brush it off like it's no big deal. Glad to hear you've found some relief now.
This really should be much higher than it is. Things related to emotions or looks are something that can be understood by anyone, regardless of gender. I wouldn't even be able to begin to understand how that sort of thing can feel, but I can sure as hell understand how it feels to be belittled for appearance, or how fickle emotions can be sometimes.
I get that. Everyone has been judged for how they look or felt misunderstood with their emotions. It's a tough spot. You don't need a specific experience to relate. Just seeing someone struggle with confidence or emotions is enough. Sometimes, all it takes is one small thing to really hit home and make you think about how people perceive each other. It's all about empathy, I guess.
My husband treats me like I'm made of glass when I'm pregnant. Mostly it's nice, but sometimes it drives me insane. I could have killed him when he sided with a midwife, at first, on the topic of pain relief when I was in labor with our son. She seemed to think I didn't need it, and I thought after 20 hours that I most definitely did. He tried to talk me out of it at first too, but I won. To be fair to him, he later said his reasoning was based on the opinion of the professional who thought I could do without. But he won't make that mistake again.
It's funny how people can be so protective sometimes, even if it's a bit much. I get wanting to do what's best for you, but there's a line. I get that tension between wanting care and needing control. It's good he learned from that experience. But yeah, in moments like labor, you definitely need to have your voice heard, no matter what anyone says. Glad it worked out in the end.
What the hell do they expect us to do? A guy I know owns his own business. He asked me why the women employees kept flushing tampons, even though he made it perfectly clear that it screwed up the plumbing. I walked into the bathroom, and there was no garbage can. Idiot. I set him straight. He needed a garbage can next to the toilet, and if he really wanted to cut down to them being flushed, he needed to get rid of the stupid toilet paper dispenser that only allowed 2 sheets at a time. He was fine with the garbage can, but thought he could keep the paper saver dispenser. I told him to empty the garbage can at night instead of the cleaning crew. A week later, he had a regular dispenser. Despite the extra costs, it was still cheaper than having a plumber come in once a month.
It's interesting how simple solutions can fix bigger problems. A friend of mine ran into a similar situation at his cafe. Customers kept spilling coffee because there were no coasters. He thought it was just a mess until someone pointed it out. He got coasters, and surprisingly, the spills dropped significantly. Sometimes, you just need to pay attention to the little things to avoid bigger headaches later on.
I once told my friend, who happens to be my manager, that I forgot to bring my Midol to work, and he got all flustered and was like, "Oh no, that's sexual harassment." He was joking, but still. Really? Periods are absolutely not sexual. And I only mentioned my medication. I didn't say anything about the period or vagina itself.
That's kind of funny. It's wild how some people react to certain topics. It's just a normal conversation about needing medicine. I get that some might find it awkward, but we should be able to talk about health stuff without turning it into a big deal. Your friend was probably trying to lighten the mood, but it seems like it backfired a bit. Just a regular day at work, I guess.
That HBO show Silicon Valley has a pretty good joke about this. Every time Gavin Belson, CEO of fictional Hooli, addresses the board, he will say, "Gentlemen of the board," and Janet. He thinks he's being super progressive, but the awkwardness just cuts into your soul. Sorry you have to go through that, though. I hope things will get better.
I've seen similar awkward moments in real life. A friend of mine tried to be inclusive in meetings and ended up overdoing it. He would add random words to address everyone, like, "team" and "whoever else is here." It felt forced, and just made things uncomfortable. You could see people trying not to cringe. Sometimes, less is more when you're trying to be respectful. It's tough to find that balance.
All of the things they say would be a little fucked up if they were said, as commonly about men, "Oh, it's great seeing more girl engineers. You must be really tough to work with all these men. Oh, this is a very unique problem. We were hoping they would send your supervisor." The last one was most often said when my male subordinate asked me to come in to help him with a unique problem, telling the client he was sending his supervisor, after I have introduced myself as the department manager.
It's interesting how gender perceptions play out in the workplace. I remember a friend who faced similar comments in tech. People would assume she was just there to support the men or that she had to be tough. It's strange how often we overlook these biases, but they can really affect how someone is seen and treated. She handled it well, but you could tell it got to her sometimes.
I worked in a hardware store for a few years. I was always infuriated with the customers who refused to speak to the women in plumbing because they needed a man's opinion. I don't know shit about plumbing. I do everything I could to convince them the women were more than qualified to help them. It rarely worked. This angered me a great deal, and I wasn't even the one not being taken seriously. I can't imagine.
That sounds frustrating. It's rough seeing people judge others based on outdated stereotypes. It's good you tried to support your coworkers, even if it didn't always work. It must have felt pretty disheartening to witness that kind of behavior regularly. I bet it was tiring trying to change minds, especially when you were just trying to do your job. It makes you appreciate people who stand up for each other, though.
This is why I feel like a stalker whenever there is a woman walking in front of me in the same direction in a not-so-populated area at a darkish time. I either run or walk really fast to go ahead of her, or walk really slow to keep a distance. The thing is, I am pretty weak. Pretty much any woman would be able to kick my ass.
It's interesting how our minds work in those situations. You feel a bit like you're intruding, and then you start overthinking everything. It's like a mental game of chess, just to avoid any misunderstanding. I guess a lot of people can relate to that uncomfortable feeling. It's a balance between not wanting to look suspicious and just trying to get to where you're going.
In slash relationships, 1. The stories about men who have been cheated on get upvoted to the top more so than the women. That AskReddit thread about people walking in on their SOs cheating on them was like this. I scrolled through at least 15 top replies before I found a woman's story, and she had to edit in the fact that she was a woman.
It's interesting how that happens. People's experiences are often viewed through a certain lens. It's like society has a bias when it comes to these stories. The top replies being mostly men shows how some narratives dominate the conversation. It kind of makes you wonder about the implications and perspectives. Everyone experiences heartbreak, but the focus can vary a lot. At the end of the day, pain feels the same, no matter who it happens to.
I posted something a few weeks ago. It got 3 comments before it was taken down. One I thought was from a woman saying, "I didn't interpret it like that, it just seemed like a silly joke." One comment that changed the photo, not sure who did that. And one comment from a male-seeming name saying, "Not everything has to conform to your worldview. You're an idiot, and this is the dumbest thing I've seen on the internet all day." I couldn't believe the vitriol. It is crazy to think women have to deal with stuff like that all the time.
It's wild how quick people are to jump in with negativity online. You can post something lighthearted, and someone just comes in swinging. That comment from the guy really shows how some people react when their views get challenged. It's true though, women often face way harsher criticism. Makes you think about what gets said behind a screen and how it affects others. Just another day scrolling through the internet, I guess.
You know, this is a really good point, and it should be higher up. A lot of dudes feel entitled, I think, when they do this. Like, hey, I got you a Michelob Ultra, you at least owe me 6 minutes of your time. If I were at a bar and had this happen to me when I'd rather be left alone, or wasn't interested, I wouldn't really know what to do. Either reject them and feel like a jerk or try to be nice, but feel like I'm leading them on.
I get it. It's awkward when someone thinks a drink gives them a claim on your time. I had a friend who dealt with this often. He'd get approached, and sometimes he just wanted to chill alone. He usually ended up being polite, but you could see the discomfort. It's a tough spot to be in when you don't want to hurt someone's feelings but also value your own space.
I had a guy randomly come up and asked if I wanted to do a shot. We chatted for a minute and I said thanks so much and that I was going to join my friends. He tapped me on the shoulder about 3 minutes later and said, "Seriously? That's all I get? Yeah. Sorry I'm not bending over for you because you spent $3 on me, asshole."
That sounds like a weird encounter. It's strange how some people think a drink gives them some sort of entitlement. Like, just because someone buys you a shot doesn't mean you owe them anything. It's good you stood your ground and didn't feel pressured. Can't let random strangers dictate your night, right? Just stick with your friends and have a good time.
A guy offered to buy my friend and I a drink when we were at the bar the other night. We are both married and just had some girl time. Of course our husbands didn't care. I said no to a drink, but she took one after hesitating a bit. But seriously, only after he said he was buying everyone a drink. He then asked us to say hi to his friends because he was playing Cupid. After we said no, and we were married, he said, "I bought you a drink, so now you have to." It pissed me off. I might want to stand up to people, but I was feeling brave and a bit tipsy. I told him no. She doesn't have to do shit. You said you were buying everyone a drink, so you did it to be nice. And she is not obligated to do anything for you. I was very proud of myself that night.
So, we were at the bar, just enjoying some girl time. A guy offered us drinks, and my friend hesitated but took one after he said he was buying for everyone. Then he got weird and thought she owed him something. It really annoyed me. I usually keep quiet, but that night I spoke up and told him off. Felt good to stand my ground. Proud moment for sure.
I used to work at an after-school program, and the kids in attendance ranged from 4 to 11 years old. The little preschool and kindergartens were absolutely obsessed with farting, pooping, and being dirty. It was their main source of entertainment. I was frequently invited to spend the afternoon in Poop World with them, where we could only talk in fart noises. I bring this up because of how much their behavior contrasted the slightly older girls, second grade and above. The 7-year-old boys still thought farts and bodily functions were hilarious, but the girls mainly posed in the photo booth and asked me what sexy meant and how to look it. This is, of course, just a small anecdote, and in no way defines all little children's development. But social conditioning can cause extreme differences in acceptable behaviors later in life.
It's interesting how kids change as they grow. When I worked with younger kids, they were all about silly stuff like fart noises. But then you see the older ones shifting to wanting to know about looking cool or sexy. It's like this rapid transition from innocence to awareness. It makes you think about how social pressures shape behavior. Just a reminder of how quickly childhood perspectives can evolve.
I went to a very Catholic grade school, and I was recently reading our graduation book. You know, the ones that said where you were going to high school/favorite things, and what you want to be when you grow up. Well, so many boys said they wanted to be pro athletes or something big, while all the girls wanted to be moms. Not that there's anything wrong with being a mother, but it was pretty obvious that the boys were taught to shoot for the stars, but the girls could not. I, on the other hand, said I wanted to grow up to be Buffy, the vampire slayer, or an Oscar winner.
It's interesting how those early years shape our goals. The guys aimed for fame or sports, while the girls were steered toward traditional roles. Your choice to be Buffy or an Oscar winner shows a different perspective. It highlights the limitations placed on expectations and ambitions. It's a reminder that we should encourage everyone to dream big, regardless of gender, and pursue what truly excites them.
I have a weird reaction to a certain common American ingredient that destabilizes my emotions, so whenever I show anger or to much of any other emotions, my family will ask, "Have you been watching what you eat recently?" It often drives me crazy when one of them pushes me to fart, and I snap back. They just brush it off as my allergy flaring up. What I am saying in a roundabout way is I feel for you. It is never fun to have what you say be brushed off as a product of unstable chemistry.
I get that. It can be frustrating when people don't take your feelings seriously and just chalk it up to something else. It seems like a lot of people can't handle emotions well. They often want to simplify things instead of really listening. It's like you have to constantly explain yourself, and that wears you down. Just trying to feel understood can be a struggle sometimes.
I broke up with my BF. We sort of traded laundry and dishes for car and handyman crap. Never really agreed to it, but he never did it, and that was always his excuse. Oh, and he hates doing it. Who doesn't? Guess what? The car needs an oil change or new tires. It's like an extra $20 to have Walmart or whatever do it. Now I do half of the laundry/dishes as before. My house stays clean, and so have way more free time. It was not a fair arrangement. Didn't really realize it until I tried being on my own.
It's interesting how breakups can show you what you really want. You thought you had a balance, but it wasn't even close. Now that you're handling things on your own, it's like you've found a better routine. Less drama, more free time, and your place is clean. It's a wake-up call about what works for you and what doesn't. Glad you figured it out.
Men are trained to bottle their feelings, and this in turn encourages to reject feelings in others as well. Women are more encouraged to notice these things. Female bonds tend to, in my experience, grow more trust when we know that we can rely on each other without the requirement of words. TLDR social norms.
It's interesting how society shapes how we express ourselves. I've seen friends struggle to share what's on their minds because they feel they should just keep it in. Meanwhile, the connections I've had with women often seem deeper, like they get the value in simply being there for each other. It's a reminder that sometimes you don't need words to build trust. Just being present can make a difference.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.